Hello, brethren and guests, and welcome to the District 8 Freemasons of Washington Roundtable discussion, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. It is important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of the Grand Lodge of Washington, our respective craft, or any concordant bodies. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to District 8's Roundtable, where tonight we will be having a special guest, Most Worshipful Brother Sam Roberts, discussing civility and masonry. Most Worshipful Brother Sam, the floor is yours.
I mean, these talk show hosts, they get to, yeah, thanks for being muted. So where's all the applaud? I mean, I go on these talk shows, everybody gets introduced and gets all this applause. So this is kind of one of my topics. Brethren, if I ever get on a soapbox, this is going to be the box that I get on. And so I've entitled this thing, Civility, or How I Can Become a Better Person and Help Make the World a Better Place. And if at the end of this thing I haven't demonstrated how you can do that, then let me know, because something's wrong with my presentation, because there's nothing wrong with civility. And here we go. So on every good news article, every presentation, every invitation, every recipe, there should be 5 basic questions. And everybody knows the 5 W's, right? Who, what, when, where, and why. So I'm going to answer all of these about civility, but I also want to take just a moment and say, I don't want you to forget these when you are sending out a reminder or a message or a meeting or anything. I want you to remember, rather, you need to answer all of these questions. I get kind of tickled. It says, we're having a meeting, and they don't tell you when or where. It's like they're missing some important information. So, do the whole thing. There's a meeting via Zoom on Tuesday this month on a certain day at 7, and answer those questions. If you want them to attend, you need to tell them who. You need to understand, do you need just the officers or just the finance committee or just whatever? Answer what? I'm calling you guys together for a budget meeting. Don't do like somebody did me once. Says, I asked, I got invited to this meeting. I asked people, so what are we meeting for? And he goes, about 40 minutes. No, I need to know why you think I should be there. And like I say, answer when, where, and why. And this is important. So every time, even if it's kind of a repetitive thing, for those that are coming in or those that are, kind of forget, like me, please answer those all the time, everywhere. Now let's see if I can answer these about civility. And here we go again. Where to start? Now, brethren, there's a couple of things. I do not read the slides. I'm thinking that you guys are big enough, old enough, and had enough education that you can read for yourselves, okay? So I'm not going to be reading these slides to you. But I want to give my thanks to Very Worshipful Brother John Lawson for giving me the place to start when we start talking about civility, because in his anatomy of the meaning of the Masonic closing charge, he included the little part that we always kind of skip over. These generous principles extend over further. So, brethren, when we start hearing the Masonic charge, the closing charge, this is the part that should hit us right between the running lights that says, this is where civility hits home. Now, let's talk about the definition of civility. It's interesting. When we get done tonight, I want everybody to go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia, that would be the source of all knowledge. And I want you to type in civility. And what you're going to get back is a quick little thing that says, oh, it's about courtesy and manners and politeness. Now, if you go to Webster's or you go to the Cambridge English Dictionary, that's all you're going to get. The act of courtesy and politeness. And that's it. That's civility? I don't think so. So while you're out there in Wikipedia, scroll on down from their basic definition of civility. I want you to go down to look a little bit further, and there's a section on civility, Masons, and civility. It talks about Masonry and why it's so important to us, to Masons in general. And I got to tell you, myself and several past Grand Masters and several other Masons from around the world are the ones that actually got civility listed in Wikipedia. Because what used to be there when you would type in civility, what you got was a little note that says "see incivility." There was no definition. So that entire thing is a result of a few Masons working together to get a definition and then getting it up to Wikipedia. Okay? Then I'll tell you what I know about civility. So studies have been done time and time again that show that children, infants, are more respectful and tolerant. They're more concerned and compassionate about others without any training whatsoever. If you watch a group of them in socially interacting, put a bunch of rugrats on the floor in a room, and they will more than likely play nice, share their toys. If one of them gets hurt, they all cry. They have civility built in. We all do. But somewhere along the line, as we get older, about the time that we learn the word no, by the time we get more self-aware and a little bit self-reliant, the tendency is for us to become less trustful, less honest, and less courteous. Now, if you don't think that's true, you just go over and ask an 8-year-old, did you do this? Why, no, the dog did it. Really? Ball-faced, right? My sister did it. So we lose our honesty. We do become less trustful. When our parents say, go to your room or I'll beat you, they go, maybe. Well, okay. So it's something that we were born with, and I don't know why we lose it, but we do. I also know that civility is not just one thing. It's not just politeness or it's not just manners. It's not just courtesy. It's very complex. Very, very complex. But without being able to paint it, civility is an attitude. It is a conscious effort. You could almost describe it as a social presence affected by environment and impacted by circumstance. Civility defines us as being human beings in the most basic manner. It is a result of the necessity of having to rely on one another. When we were still swinging in the trees, okay, we relied on each other, and by George, for our own food, protection, warmth, all the rest of those good things. And if you got gathered up in a group to stay warm and you started hitting somebody else, guess what they would do? They would beat you silly, throw you out of the tree. And it got more and more complex as human beings moved from swinging in the trees to into villages, from being hunter-gatherers, and the cities. When you moved into the cities, it was not only kind of an option, you had to be civil or people would run you out of town on a rail. I know that civility takes effort, and it takes a lot of effort. And it takes effort because we do lose it, and we continually lose it as we get older. If you start talking to some old curmudgeon, well, they're not very civil people, are they? So if we don't work at it, if we really don't work at it like we would go to the gym, then we lose it more and more every day. Now, we live and work in a society, and we kind of expect civility in return, don't we? So we get it in varying degrees. But I'm here to tell you, it's one of those things where it comes under the heading of you earn respect. It's not given, you earn it. So that being the case, it requires a lot more work on our part to maintain our own civility. And we may have to just step over the line just a little bit to say somebody that's not being civil to us, of going ahead and extending our civility back, even though it may not be warranted. So if we don't take our civility out to the gym, if we don't practice and perfect our civility, if civility continues to decay, where do we end up? And I'm here to tell you, the ultimate result will be the complete and total downfall of civilization itself. Think about it. Give you a minute to read through some of this. I mean, the good news is most people define civility as being the golden rule, and that covers a lot of stuff. I mean, you can't really say golden rule without looking at all the little things, all the little widgets down at the bottom. And good manners. Good manners requires all these little things. So really, what is civility? Well, it's all of these and more, right? So you can understand why it's so difficult to define civility when just one or two or three. I mean, it takes all of these in some sort of combination. Now, I did list the first three, right? Because they are what I consider to be the most important. And I mean, they're all important, but the ones that really kind of define our character are respect, tolerance, and honesty. And where do we get that? My brethren, that is right out of our own rituals. It's right out of our own everything we do involves respect, tolerance, and honesty within our lodges, doesn't it? I mean, there's a lot of the other things as well, but without respect, tolerance, and honesty, that's not what we would consider to be a good brother, is it? And I got to tell you, respect is one of those things that it includes respect for yourself as well as for others. And I gotta think it's impossible. It's just impossible to have respect for others if you don't have it for yourself. And we've seen examples of it. There are many people today that have neither. They don't respect themselves. They don't respect others. I know I've told the story about the guy that I saw with his pants down to his knees, funky underwear, wearing a military OD green jacket with stripes on it and a medal around his neck. And I noticed the stripes and I noticed the medal. I first went up to him and I'm going, "So are you military?" And he goes, well, what he said I can't repeat, but the answer was no, he's not military. And I said, "Do you know what that symbol is on that thing that you're wearing around your neck, on your shirt?" And he goes, "It's a medal." Well, yeah, but do you know what it represents? No. I said, "Well, the OD grain, you are representing yourself as being military. Military people wear OD grain. And the badge that you're having, the medal that you're wearing, is a past master's officer's jewel. So by doing this, you are showing absolute disrespect for our military and for Freemasons." Now, he got all hostile and defensive, and he goes, "You can't tell me how to dress." And I'm going, "That's absolutely true. But knowing that you're dressed the way you do, and the fact that you wear these things shows a lot of disrespect to the people that do know what they are. You know, that don't have a deep appreciation. So you're saying a lot about yourself just by the way that you dress. And if you're looking for respect, that's not the way to get it. Now, the conversation didn't end well. I mean, I didn't reform the guy. I didn't really anticipate him changing himself and putting in a petition for Masonry, thank God. But at the same token, I hope I gave him something just a little bit to think about. Now, tolerance, I listed that. And it's not just tolerance for religion and politics. I mean, we don't even talk about them. So how can we tolerate them? We don't know what our brother's political or religious affiliation is unless we just happen to know them personally. And so what I want to bring up to you, tolerance must be for all individual differences, not just religion and politics, but race and nationality and ethnicity and economic standing and education and mental capacity and physical attributes. There should be no room in a Mason's heart or mind or in his lodge for any kind of prejudice. Think about this. Wouldn't it be just a great world if the word prejudice just kind of faded away from our language and our vocabulary? We just didn't have any anymore. And brethren, you don't have to like everybody. You may not like a certain person or a certain individual. But even then, as a Mason, as a man, character and all these character traits, I ask that you practice civility in your relationship with that individual. I don't care how much of a curmudgeon he really is. Honesty, in my opinion, seems to be the one attribute that suffers the most today, where a lot of us have a tendency to bend or slanting the facts when it's convenient, and it seems acceptable in some circles. I mean, it's just like it's normal. Honesty is one of those things that it's not telling a fish story, right? I always like the thing about the guy that, he says, I caught a fish this big and he's only holding up one arm. That's not being totally honest, but you're doing it for the effect or for the humor. If you're playing it for the humor, that's great. But if you are hurting somebody or deriding somebody in the same breath, then probably not. You're not being honest with yourself. You're not being very civil. And I don't want to go into that anymore because at this point, I kind of have to maintain my own civility. Civility is good. I can't think of anything wrong with civility. Is there anybody? I mean, anybody here that would disagree that our list of attributes is anything but the ideals of a good character? Anybody? Anybody? Steve, you? Oh, well, all right. Ethics. Is there anyone that would argue that our list here violates the laws of morality or ethical behavior? And we'll come back around to morality and ethical behavior in just a minute, right? But this is what makes civility the perfect ally for Masons and Freemasonry. And well, like I say, we'll come back. Choice. You don't have to be civil. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of people that actually go out of their way to be uncivil. But is there anyone that really has the opinion that civility can't be cultivated or can't be cultivated and strengthened by exercise? If you do, there are study after study that says if you practice it daily, it becomes innate, it becomes part of your nature, and is not so hard after all. And I have to question, I just wonder, why is it so hard for us to maintain our civility in today's society? I mean, really, we get many, many, many opportunities, a lot more opportunities than we used to give us an opportunity to practice our civility. We were talking about swinging from the trees, okay? And as we became hunter and gatherers, anybody that wasn't civil, they were ostracized. They were left to be eaten by something that was faster than they were. They were just pushed out of the tribe. Okay. Later, people that were uncivilized and discourteous, they were shunned. They were physically ostracized, and even if they remained in the tribe, it was not a pleasant experience for them. Uncivil people were, when we got around to villages and cities, uncivil people were labeled as being uncultured, right? You almost had to be civil. Living in cities, living in your neighborhoods, whether you wanted to or not, you had to be civil, because life was lived on the front porch and in your church and your clubs and your societies. Hey, everybody was watching and judging. So civility was kind of brought out of the tribe and into the city, into the towns, and was almost mandated. And particularly in our past, when we had large extended families all living under the same roof, you had to be civil, or somebody was taking somebody out to the woodshed. Now, it didn't take long for people to understand that civility was seriously important. And so I want to point out a couple things. Anybody that does not have a copy of George Washington's 110 Rules of Civility needs to write to the George Washington National Masonic Memorial and get a copy. It's entertaining. The one that particularly got my attention is it's uncivil to spit in the fire. Well, yes, it is. Don't be doing that. I got my hot dog in there somewhere. And talking about civility, Dear Abby made a flipping living giving advice to people about civility. Okay, I mean, there's a need for it. How after the wars, people really were in desperate need of civility. After seeing all the things that went on during World War I and World War II, people demanded that other people return and make it a more civilized world. And I find it interesting that if you go back even before the world wars, that in times of trouble or in times of strife, the civility expressed by people did one of two things. It either deteriorated, or kind of like in today's society, in the COVID era of COVID, civility was really brought forward. I mean, it was just brought to the forefront. People are much more civil today than they were last year. Interesting, isn't it? Now, when we find out that the divorce rate is going to go up, we'll just find out how much civility they practiced at home. At one point, the men coming back from war, World War I and World War II, if you go back and look at the trend of Masonic membership, you'll find, particularly after World War II, that they joined. They were joiners. They joined everything. They were joining social clubs and charitable organizations, fraternal organizations, and PTA, and they were really they were investing in society. Okay, so I mean, the animal groups were going great guns. The bridge clubs, every little town, every little neighborhood had a bridge club. In Little League and youth sports, there are all sorts of artistic and cultural societies. When we were talking about the animal groups, the moose and the elk, the guy comes over and he goes, I understand that moose have sex 5 times a day. And the guy goes, really? And he says, yep. And elk sometimes have sex at 7 times a day. Holy cow, the guy says. And he goes, yeah. And the lions are once every 5 minutes. The guy goes, darn. And I just joined the Masons. Now, nobody's laughing. Oh, okay, they're muted. Never mind. All right. So now here we come, and now I'm looking in a mirror. I'm one of those boomers, and I got to tell you, if my father did it, I was not. And that's one of the reasons that I was over 30 years old before I ever joined Masonry. Boomers were anti-establishment. They were focusing on obtaining work success for themselves and their families. And from the investment that we had right out, in social work in our society, in the 40s and the 50s, look what happened. Look at the drop in membership and look at the drop in involvement and investment. And guess what, brethren? It's going on today, even today. Now, I know there's a lot of people a lot of lodges that are gaining members, but the vast majority are continuing to lose their members and lose the involvement that their members that do come to lodge, and to try and scare up $5 for dinner sorry, trying to scare up $5 for a prime rib dinner. Holy cow, you'd think you would ask them to mortgage the house. There are a number of books that explain all this, but it's so pervasive in our society that there's movies about the movies and the books. They're all about individuals, right? They're not about teams. They're about, I kicked everybody's butt and I saved the world all by myself. This is the song. The song "I Did It My Way" is what the boomers grew up with, and it kind of leaves civility, that social investment we were talking about, civility at the door, or just leaves it out in the cold. And if you're thinking it's getting any better, now Steve and I have a little bit of a difference of opinion on this about the next gen and what attracts them. But I'm here to tell you, the sociological studies that I've been reading, with the advent of computers and social interactions via email or messaging or Twitter or all the rest of them, limits the personal interaction that you normally get face to face. And it limits your outside activities. Your personal relationships are not personal, they're via computer. I mean, they were going out on, today's kids go out on herd dates. They don't go out on individual dates. So you go out in mass, and that's great, but at what point do you actually put your face in front of another and talk seriously about anything? From almost day one, they are told, I mean, they are, by their parents, their teachers, by society, they are now convinced that they can say and do almost anything and without consequence. Seriously. They're told they can be anything and do anything, and that there's no such thing as losing. And brethren, when you try and work in society, individual is not going to work. They're looking for instant gratification, right? Work for Boeing, and we got a new guy in, right? Brought him in as an intern, and then after his internship, hired him. And it wasn't 2 weeks. He came in and goes, "Well, when do you think do I make manager?" 2 weeks. Hey, son, I need to slap you around with some reality, right? And Steve loves the work, loves working around, using technology to communicate. Well, that's great. But with anonymity comes a denial of responsibility. I mean, you can say or do anything if your sign-in is JKL-JL6742, right? There is no social responsibility coming back to bite you, right? And when it does, if you get caught, most of the guys kind of shift the blame to others. More and more on television and in social media, right? There is a call for civility. I mean, I'm really glad to see it. A lot of the news networks are really berating some of our politicians that they are not playing nice in the sandbox, right? Slowly, I hope we are waking up to the fact that there's a loss of humanity tied with the loss of civility. When you forego the rude and vulgar, and I guess sometimes profane, uninformed, uneducated, hurtful comments, right? Commentators are beginning to really berate and kind of call out those guys that are found lacking in civility. That group that got the definition of of civility into Wikipedia, has also constructed a civility scorecard. And you would just be amazed at how uncivil our politicians are, have been, and apparently continue to be. Back in the last election, we were taking copies of some of their speeches and we were dropping them into this civility scorecard. And there were no winners. Between Clinton and Trump, there was nothing there that we should emulate. And yet people were watching this and just, cheering it on, encouraging it. And that's bad. The Scouts, the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Sea Scouts, and churches still adhere to the basic tenets of civility. Those that don't are known as hypocrites, but their primary focus is inward, right? And with a call for community involvement and charity investment more than anything else. They're not so much on investing in personal or society's relationships. Brethren, I got to tell you, Masons, almost alone, still hold as a foundation, a cornerstone, that brotherly love, relief, and truth are the things that we cherish. In brotherly love, we're looking for that respect, that concern, that community service, accommodation, tactfulness, courteousness out of that list that we saw before. Relief, doesn't that include compassionate, trustworthy, mature, decent, attentive, helpful? And truth, aren't these things really no more than honesty and consideration? Civility has been made more difficult. I mean, more difficult every day because we have lost, actively pushed away our friends and families and neighbors. I mean, we used to put them first, but now don't we put ourselves first and our families and our friends and our neighbors almost last? We actively tell people to mind their own business. And if we don't take our civility out and practice it, if we don't work it and make it strong and strengthen it, this is a plain and simple truth. A world where people only care for themselves is anarchy. And the whole social structure and the physical world that supports it will crumble to dust. And history bears this out. History is full of this truth, whether it be locally, nationally, or just between tribes. Where civility was abandoned, anarchy rules. Masonry is one of the last strongholds of civility. And who would be better to share this civility than us? I mean, the Scouts are great and the churches are great, but again, they have that internal focus. We have that internal focus as well as a whole global community, a whole worldwide organization of Freemasons in every country and every clime. So let's get busy. Let's share our morality and our ethics with every person we meet, right? Let me just coin a phrase for you. Masonry, every day and every way. Wait a minute. I kind of like that. I like that. I should probably use that sometime. We need to lengthen our cable toe, beginning with ourselves. Let us practice civility, so much so that it just becomes normal. And if we do that, then it'll become a habit. And a habit gets ingrained into ourselves as a character trait. We need to examine that list of civil attributes that we saw earlier and to see which one of those need to be taken out for a walk and enrolled in a fitness class, right? Let us lengthen our cable tow. Let us lead others to the light. Let us practice physical distancing, but social connection. Let's ask for divine and human help to have the discipline to be the best that we can be. Let's practice civility in every thought and every deed, in everything we say to everyone all the time. There's a saying that came out. It says, if you can't be civil, if you just can't be civil, then be capable of silence. If the world needs what we have, and we could actually get it out there to the whole world, and I mean, really, think about this. Would there be wars? If everyone were a Mason, if every man was a Mason, would there be wars? Wouldn't our courts be less busy? Poor lawyers, I'm sorry, okay, right? Wouldn't contracts become more simple? I mean, maybe we could even get back to a handshake. Oh, elbow bump, sorry, at 6 feet. Elbow bumps at 6 feet. Yeah, there'll be disputes, just like in our lodges, but if we all of us, right, our politicians and our countries apply the rules of civility and the commitment to brotherly love and relief and truth, wouldn't resolution almost be guaranteed? If the best way to improve our lodge is by improving ourselves, wouldn't the same hold true for your family, right? Wouldn't it be true of your neighborhood, your city? And if that's the case, what about the state, nation, and the whole world? Okay, then what about your church and your work? What about your family staying home, particularly under this time when the pressure is so high? And if that's the case, then what about our happiness and our well-being? Brethren, if every man was a Mason, wouldn't we all be a lot more satisfied with life? I mean, this is being a little philosophic, I'm sure, but you get my point. And if you think it's an impossible task, remember what John Lawson said last week about corporal change, a physical rewiring in one's brain by reinforcing feelings, repetitive action, and a conscious, deliberate restating of your thoughts. Now, brethren, if you want to explore some more of this, I suggest that you add the book Bowling Alone. The guy's name is Robert D. Putman. He explores the reasons why our society is losing membership in everything. And the other one I want you to read is Choosing Civility. As a matter of fact, I want you to go buy Choosing Civility. The guy's name again is P.M. Forney, F-O-R-N-I. If you add these to your reading list, you may come up to the same conclusions that I have. That civility is good, there's nothing bad about it, and that we should all be more civil, again, every day, every way. And there you have it.
All right, Sam, I'm going to go ahead and stop your sharing so I can see everybody again. There we go. I've got everybody up.
God, they look the same.
Yeah. Before we get into the conversation and the question and answer, I know that some people have to sometimes get out before we get done. So I want to mention that, first of all, thank you, Sam, for doing the presentation. I truly appreciate you coming out and doing that. Once again, thank you to Very Worshipful Brother Larry Foley, the Deputy of the Grand Master in District 8, for lighting this fire under me to get this going. And for anybody that's interested, this time next Thursday, we'll be doing a Worshipful Brother Andre DeWalt will be doing a talk on Masonic ethics versus morals. And then the following week, we invite you to bring your ladies, bring your dinner, and we're going to be roasting the Grand Master virtually, because every year the Sultan Monroe Lodge does a roast of the Grand Masters on the first Saturday in May. But we can't do that this year, so we're going to do it right here on this platform virtually. And with that, I will open it up to questions or discussions. Anybody raise your hand, or Chuck?
Very worshipful, sir. I think that the Grand Secretary has a program next week at the same time as your training. Did you see that notice this week?
Yeah, I did. I saw that he's got secretary some training he's doing. There's an XCOM tonight. My feeling is I started it first, and if they want to go on the same nights, that's up to them. So
well, I understand. I understand completely, and I would like to. I would like to be a part of yours, and I probably will. But I just didn't know if maybe we were missing something important by not listening to the Grand Secretary.
Chuck, I would. Go ahead, Andre.
I did send a note to Right Worshipful Brother Chris that I couldn't make his meeting because I was here, and he said he would not schedule any more on Thursday night.
I would love to be at the Grand Secretary's thing next Thursday, but I'm going to be here. So, anybody else? So I know that I got to defend myself a little bit there because Sam kind of dimed me out. I got you next, John. Kind of dimed me out a couple of times about technology, and although technology, social media, can be disappointing because of things like you mentioned, technology also provides us opportunities like this, where we can get together from different states, from different parts of the state, from all over. We've got 32 people on here from Arizona, from Eastern Washington, from Idaho. Last week we had Canada. So although I understand what you're saying, that social media can be bad, technology is not bad. It's how you choose to use it.
And there's the point. It's how you choose to use it.
Yeah. All right, John. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Sam. You did a wonderful job. That was very good. And, that's the message right now. That is the message. One thing I noticed is that we have the millennials coming in as the strong force that's coming in underneath now. And they're coming in a lot more often than we had during the baby boomer period between the 1960s. We started that 50,000 member decline every year. And it's hard to even imagine 50,000 members a year falling off our ranks. But now you have another group, this millennial group, who don't really ask what or where or how. They ask why. They want to know why we do what we do. They want to know how it's going to make us better men. And I think Civility plays such a huge role because they are looking for that male model to help them reestablish civilization. They've got the little kid now, the pretty new wife, and they're looking at their community and asking, how do I fit into this? How can I be a better version of myself? And civility is really that key, I think. And I think what you said was right on, and we need to get that message really strongly out there. But you did a wonderful job with it tonight. Anyway, thank you for that.
Thank you, John. So I have to agree that I think if we use civility as a basis for a lot of our other things, including the esoteric, right?
That's right.
All of those things, but we do it in a very civilized manner, open for debate, open for discussion. I think that'll take us a long way down the road. And I began to see you wave so hard, I was beginning to think you were about to elevate. So,
well, I would say, let me just say one last thing here, and I'll get off. But when you mentioned esoteric, and I teach a lot of esoteric, and one of the things that the young guys really, especially, are surprised by is how much ethics and morality is taught beforehand. Without those things, as far back in time as you can go, morals and ethics play the greatest role before anything else is talked about. And a lot of times they'll say, well, why is that? I'm surprised there's so much of that. And that is part of that training of the mind to make sure that you're a worthy candidate to understand these deeper truths. So it all plays a role, and civility is the foundation of almost every one of those esoteric arts.
So, in my opinion, civility is the basis for morality and ethics.
That's right.
You have to. We had those so they wouldn't throw you out of the tree, right? And let the lions eat you. So, and that has become so ingrained in our society now. We have a name for it. It's called morality and ethics and character.
So I have Larry Foley next, and then Roy Sharp. Give me 1 second. Sam, what was the second book that you mentioned? I put the first one in the chat, but I didn't get the second one. Bowling Alone and
Choosing Civility.
Choosing Civility. And who was that by?
Hang on. P.M. Forney.
Perfect. Okay, I put that in the chat. So Foley.
Yeah, going back to what Sam was talking about with the civility meter for the speeches. Last year, I was at the Urgency for Civility conference in Washington, D.C., or actually Alexandria. It was at the Washington Masonic Memorial. And that was actually talked about during the conference because we had representatives from various organizations, government organizations. We had one person in particular who ran nationwide campaigns for like senators and Congress people. And when he heard about this meter, you know, he kind of chuckled because he said, when it's most of the time, a lot of our electeds, they believe in being civil to one another, as you know, we see in the movies, until it comes election time, and then the mud's got to,
until they get in front of a camera.
And then everything's dropped. And we were all just kind of flabbergasted about this because one of the organizations there was the Civility and Government organization based out of Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
That's one of their big things they do is reach out to our electeds about civility programs and send kids to DC to see them work. But during election years, it's like, wow, what happened? You know, we digressed. And so, yeah, and click out those links that I posted to everybody. Those were the Masonic Family Civility Project was something Sam was real big on helping set up. And the civilitycouncil.org, that is now what it has morphed into, its own independent 501c3 organization dedicated to the spread of civility.
So they're all under an umbrella called the Worldwide Civility Center.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's what we're using as a primary vehicle to focus on each of these things and actually start, gaining some momentum. In other words, momentum meaning, a little bit of cash. It amazes me, Larry, you're absolutely right that until they get in front of a camera, people are pretty much, nice to one another. It reminds me of these reality shows, right? Nobody would watch everybody sitting around at a dining room table being civil to one another. They have to write in conflict into their scripts. They have to have a crisis. Otherwise, people would watch. And that's now what you see in politics.
Same thing with our talk shows. We went from Merv Griffin to Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
All right, so I got Roy Sharp,
Where's
and
Art
then
Leakplatter and the kids say the darndest things.
After Roy, I got Lauren, and I got Bud. Go ahead, Roy.
Works for Brother Steve. All I was going to bring up was the subject we were discussing previously in regard to the youth. I attended an installation of officers, and the young man that was being installed into the South was very young. Later, he asked me, he says, what does Grand Lodge have to offer me as a young person?
Exactly.
And I'm going to tell you, you have to really give that some thought to give him a good, sincere answer. And let me back up. I attended a district meeting, and that's when I was asked the question. And then I found out he was going into the South. So I attended his installation. And then I had a little more information after I kind of researched his question. But it's amazing how you can become friends with a young person just by listening to what their question is. You can tell that is their concern in life. So it was a very interesting conversation that we had. changing that subject, I might also, as an announcement, we have a Zoom meeting, District 17 at 1 o'clock this Saturday, the 25th. Thank you.
Okay. And Sam, the George Washington book, what was that?
110 rules of George Washington. Hang on.
You're supposed to have these off the top of your head. Well, no, you don't have anything on top of your head. Never mind.
Oh, be careful
Okay.
now.
So there it is. You'll notice I don't have to do anything more than reach over. I keep these books on my desk as a reminder.
It's not focused. You need to read it to me.
All 110 of them?
No, just what's the name of it?
George Washington's Rules of Civility.
Okay. That's better. Thank you. Lauren.
Hi. So
Hey.
I wanted to pose this to Sam and to Steve and initially. What do you think is the reason for the decrease in membership in terms of maybe not so much the decrease in terms of people dying, but in terms of not generating new members, and how much of that is happening now in Washington? Do you know like how many, like what our membership was 6 months ago versus what it is now or a year ago?
You can get some of that information if you go out to Grandview. You can see exactly how many Masons there are, how many have passed, how many have withdrawn, if you will. If you'll go back and read that book called Bowling Alone, it explains a lot of the disinterest, lack of concern for all group activities. I mean, when we were all sitting out on the front porch, well, if you wanted to talk to anybody, if you wanted to see everybody walk down the street, there's where life happened, was on the front porch. But what happened? Among other things, we moved to the backyard, right? We don't see everybody walking on. We wanted our privacy. We began to withdraw, and we began to push people away from our being interested in us. And then because of that, we got less interested in them. And what did we do next? We put up a fence around our backyard so we wouldn't even have to talk to our neighbors. So among other things, that's what you'll find in that book called Bowling Alone.
Well, I guess what I'm really getting at though is, I mean, for our lodge in Olympia, I think we've actually been maybe fortunate, but we've been doing a pretty good job of getting new members in the last year or so. And I kind of think we had some momentum going that'll probably take it a little bit in the chin from suspending the meetings and stuff, but I'm confident or hopeful that it'll resume when we're able to start meeting again. But what I mean is not so much just, you know, in terms of like front porch stuff, but what do you think it is in terms of what lodges need to do to generate interest and excitement, if you will, or whatever, that will retain current members and encourage new ones?
And as I was going around to district meetings, one of the things that I was talking about is I think that we've lost our way, so to speak. I think that the internal foundation of the lodges have weakened. When we bring in a new candidate, when we bring in a new entered apprentice, and we initiate them, we go through all of that work, and we tell them that you have to remember all of this stuff in order to prove up to become the next level. And then we go to close lodge, and the 3 principal officers of the lodge can't close lodge. That's telling them that it's not important to them. Why should it be important to me? I think that's one of our problems. I think we have a lot of issues, but I think that's one of it, is that the foundation in the lodge, the basic process of the lodge has deteriorated, and we need to build that back up. we've got good programs on the outside, but I've seen lodges struggle that have great Bikes for Books programs. They have great scholarship programs, but the lodge is failing because they're not doing the basics. They're not doing the good work inside the lodge that needs to be done to be sustainable.
And in my opinion, right, just to add on to it, Steve, I absolutely agree. But part of it is when somebody comes up, Lauren, and asks you, you are a Mason. You go, yes. And they go, well, why? What does Masonry mean to you? What is it going to do for me? Every one of us really should have a Masonic I statement, right? I am a Freemason, and I am a Freemason because I believe that honesty and integrity is more important than anything else in this world. My personal character relies on these things. And as a Mason, I am supported in all of these aspects. And if you become a Mason, you will find out how important this is to your own character. It's that simple. So we each need something to say, I am a Mason because. And it'll be different for every one of us.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next we had Bud. Let me unmute you, Bud. Nope, didn't work. There you go.
Okay.
Hey, Bud.
Hey, so when you were talking about the transition from the 3-year-olds to the 8-year-olds, took me back to 1958, and one of the few times we ever got to see a movie when I was growing up. South Pacific, and in there is a song entitled "You Have to Be Carefully Taught," and it details out about hate. So while you were talking, I dug it up on YouTube and sent you the URL and Steve the URL. Maybe you'd want to share it, but it's a very interesting song in the middle of a musical, and you kind of wonder if it isn't the authors set up the musical so they could teach you this lesson. But
the lesson I got out of South Pacific is you got to wash this man right out of your hair. But I never had the man, but I lost the hair.
True. But it's a very interesting song to listen to.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so I've got Michael Burton, and then we've got Lauren White, and then Glenn after that. Go ahead, Michael. Unmute yourself there. There you go.
How's that?
Perfect.
Hey, Michael.
Brother Sam. Hey, first off, I really appreciate being invited to this. This is my first time doing a virtual meeting like this, and I got to say it's very educational and entertaining, and I'm glad to see my brothers again because it's been some time. So
I'm just really glad to know that about half you guys aren't wearing pants.
Oh goodness. Okay, so one of the things that what I've been noticing as far as with some of the brethren in my area, some of the older ones, is the issue of tolerance when it comes to being civil. And that also ties into part of why membership is declining, is because they aren't really open to new ideas. And they want to keep things the way they've always been, even though there's a obvious decline in membership. And I think with any civilization or even with lodges in general, we have to grow with the times. And I think one of the beautiful parts about what's happening now is that we now have a new way to communicate, and we're utilizing even more this technology to be able to communicate this way. And this is something that can also bring in younger members and get them a little bit more involved. But as far as tolerance, I dealt with it in my lodge when I was in the East, and dealt with some very un-Masonic things, only because they were not willing to try something different. And I had another incident where some we had new members in Scottish Rite. We had new members just came in a week after reunion, and white hats, man, totally un-Masonic just because of some ideas I had brought up as Venerable Master. And fortunately we were able to keep 2 of those in attendance, but there were 4 total and 2 never came back. And I think tolerance and the respect, the ideas of those that are coming up will help our membership to increase. I don't want to get off track here because we were speaking on civility, and one of the things that really bothers me is that some of our older members are can be unwilling to adapt to what is happening. Instead, they want to stay where they're at instead of to adapting up to the changes around us. And I feel as if we were to do that, that would help us out. And I really like the ending part of your presentation is when you said, what if every man was a Mason, how this world would be. And I've said that, I've said that in meetings before. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could make all my friends Masons. Because what is brought to me. There was a.
Hey, Michael?
Yes, I'm listening.
So tolerance is a very hard thing to practice. I mean, it really is, because civility gets tempered by circumstance. So if you are standing in the street and somebody yells at you or says something obscene or whatever, our first natural reaction, because we haven't been practicing it, is to retaliate. So even when we are a victim of intolerance, the very next thing we usually do is retaliate and become intolerant. So in everything that's going on in Masonry today, particularly in the state of Washington, there's a lot of effort on our youth. It's easier to teach them when they're young. Catch them just after they learn the word no, right? Catch them then and begin to teach them what civility really implies. The old geezers like me, who have just celebrated our 50th anniversary of our 21st birthday, right? It's a little late for us. And unless we consciously decide, I'm going to be a better person every day, and I'm going to start practicing some of these things, I'm going to start taking my patience out for a walk, my tolerance, and we'll take it out for a walk. It's very difficult for us. And some of them, and this is where I think it comes in with your lodge and your Scottish Rite, some of them are not recognizing the fact that they are being intolerant. And in a civil manner, it might behoove you to go, you said such and such, but is that, in dealing with civility, is that really what you intended, what you implied?
And that's one of the things also I wanted to point on is that for me, Masonry is if any of us have seen the old, what is that? The Harrison Ford movies when he's out there searching for lost jewels and stuff like that. And he has his old thing, he has to unlock this box in order to get to the answer. And for me, I think Masonry is that. And so Masonry is this great jewel that you can, if we do all that we have been instructed to do, we'll unlock the answers of what it really is. And for me, when I go into my lodge or another lodge and they're just breezing through opening and not doing the ritual the correct way, it comes to a time where we've reaped what we sow. When that first person said, hey, you know what, we don't have to do it that way anymore. I want this meeting to go fast. We're going to shorten this part, or we're going to shorten that part. When we take away from the essence of the rituals and the obligations, I think it really affects the whole of the jewel and the benefits of what Masonry really is. And I think the decline in our membership is proof of that, especially in the smaller lodges where they tend to say, you know what, there's not that many people here. We really don't need to do it that way. When I think even through the toughest of times, even through the toughest of times, if you continue to do it the right way, the way you were taught, the way you're instructed, that is what brings out the real true strength of a lodge and what a Mason is. But I think a lot of us have fallen into the trap of, well, there's really not people looking. So, I mean, who's going to notice? We'll do it the right way when somebody as important is around. When I think we should do it the right way all the time.
I agree.
If I could just say, Michael, I could listen to you read the phone book. Okay, Lauren White, you're unmuted.
Okay.
I got you next, Glenn.
Brethren, and well done, Brother Roberts. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
It's just kind of synchronous. Before I even knew that this was going on tonight, I was on the phone today with a friend of mine, and we're both in our late 20s, and we were kind of discussing this very issue, and just kind of talking about how it's good, I think, to have some humility and realize that society has changed so fast and so much in just a few decades that it's so hard to understand exactly what factors are leading to this decrease in civility. And you went over some really good points, and I thought particularly your part on the kind of nature versus nurture factors in that was really interesting, like how children seem to have this instinctual civility, but clearly there is this learned factor, and something's changing. This is supported. There's studies showing that college-aged people are, in the United States at least, are tending to be less empathetic with other people. But yeah, I was just going to say it helps me to kind of have some compassion and realizing that it's such a complex issue, and it's just hard to say exactly why this is happening. I think the entertainment and media and the weapons of mass distraction are definitely a huge part of it.
Weapons of mass distraction. I like that. I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, but I guess I'll say too is maybe it looks like maybe the youngest person here, that there are those of us who are seeing that many people our age and younger are starved, I think, for civility, whether or not they realize it. And it leads to this kind of epidemic of apathy at best and kind of cynicism at worst, because I think a lot of us have grown as we grow up. I'm almost 30, and it's like just so many aspects of society are so confusing, and I think people just feel like they don't have much control over the way things are going. And it kind of results in this Kafkaesque, like just maddening frustration, and people are so atomized that they don't feel accountable for being civil to other people. So
what I found, Brother Lauren, is that in a lot of cases, I won't say majority, but in a lot of cases, personally, I believe it's because people, and not just people your age, but people in general, don't know what civility really is. They don't understand the attributes of what civility is. They can't break it down. It's more than just good manners, because good manners implies that you don't spit in the fire, for one, right? And that you use a napkin or dribble. So being polite and good manners is just that much of what civility really is. And in my opinion, people don't know. And so I think it's our job to educate them on, holy cow, how big was that list?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me get Glenn, and then I'll get you, John.
John wants to fly again.
Yeah, go ahead, Glenn.
Thanks very much, Paul. For those of us up in Bellingham District 10, we sure thank you for hosting this and allowing us as Masons to be able to continue to travel during these difficult times. Always one of the greatest adventures is to be able to travel with as a Mason. Most wishful, my thought on the civility, and I know that during your term, I remember sitting in lodge and hearing the discussions about civility, and then I remember not all that long ago when there was a report done by Grand Lodge trying to answer the questions, why Masons have fallen from the roles of our lodge, or why did someone who was a fellow craft didn't continue on. And it seemed like one of the most common answers to that was, as I remember, was the drama in the lodge. Too much drama, which is probably another words for lack of civility. And with that in mind, I wanted to just ask you a question. As you've really explored the concepts of civility, have you found some practical applications to bring back the concept of civility in Masonry or in lodge? I think you kind of touched on, the I am a Mason statement. And if there's been other things like that have tried to promote that civility more than just the education or highlighting the concept of civility. Yeah, the reason that I chose to write a I statement, if you will, is in so many cases, and I see it all the time. People go, well, you're a Mason. Yes, I am. Well, why? And they can't answer it. They have no response going. And then they'll come out after thinking about it for a minute. They'll come out, well, it makes a good man better. Well, wait a minute. The person you're talking to more than likely considers himself already to be a good person. I mean, he's not robbing banks, or well, maybe he is, but most things, right? They're already a good person. And they go, well, I'm already there then. I don't need to pay dues. So I highly recommend, as a matter of fact, I have my I statement on the wall, just right over here, okay? And it's just a short paragraph, but if somebody asks me, I now have a response on what it means to me. And then I come back and go, and as you become a Mason, if you become a Mason, you will be able to answer that question for yourself. Now, that's one thing. The other thing that I think would be a really big help is most people just don't know about us. I mean, they pass the buildings, they see a square and compasses, they have no clue what it is. The buildings look terrible in a lot of cases, not yours, John. So what we need to do is we need to get out there. We need to make sure that we are, and I hate to use the word, we are a force in the community. We're a presence in the community, and we're doing good things. We are demonstrating we are investing in our society, and we invest in ourselves. Does that help?
I really do like that, the I statement. I think that's something that could be promoted in lodge, and kind of make even those who've been around for a while reflect upon 20-30 years of Masonry and see what really is keeping us returning to lodge and advancing lodge. But yeah, thank you.
All right, so I got John Lawson, then I got Larry Foley, and then we'll go back over to Lauren Kaiser.
Okay, well, thank you. I just want to address a couple of comments. Lauren, you couldn't have said that better, I don't think. I appreciate your comments, and those are the same comments I hear a lot. On Monday night, I gave up a while back, Sam, trying to beat on people at the lodge. Like you said, you don't work on the old guys, you work on the young guys. And so I set up shop at my house on Monday nights. And what ended up happening was a very strange thing. Most of the people that began to be here on Monday night were not Masons. They were young men in their 20s, 30s, and 40s that wanted something better than they had. They were out in the community. They were interested in Masonry, And I sat them down and I said, before you join the lodge, there are some things you need to learn. And one of them is civility. One of them is the idea of what that is. But I need to know why you're here. And because what's happened with so many of the people that we've talked to that have come in the front door and gone out the back door, Lauren, and to your comment, and Glenn, to your comment, is that we've lacked relevance. We lose relevance to the young people coming in. We're not a tool that they can pull out of their toolbox to apply to their life. They don't see their life getting better by becoming a Mason. And the reason why is because when they come into the lodge, we're the same old as outside the lodge. The thing that needs to distinguish us between inside the lodge in this sacred retreat as compared to this profane world on the outside is our behavior and our civility. And sometimes that is very hard to distinguish from one side of the door to the other. And that's really what I want to say. Civility is that root that shores that up. And I told these young men, you're going to go into that lodge. You're going to hear things. You're going to say things you're not going to like. You're going to hear old people say things that are rude. They're going to tell you not to dress that way, not to talk that way. They're going to ignore you. You are going to learn this here, and you're going to take it there. You're going to infiltrate. You're going to go into that lodge, and you're going to learn Masonry better than anyone's ever learned Masonry. Now, that's appealing. I don't know about you, Lauren, but that's appealing to the younger men that are interested in coming in and learning about Masonry. They know what they need. They don't know how to get it, and they're knocking at our door asking us to show them. We're not literal enough. We're not real enough with them. We don't explain our moral and spiritual science with them in a clear and concise enough way. If we would do that, this younger group who are very knowledge heavy, but very wisdom light, they're coming to us to put all that together. They've heard 1,000 different ways that Masonry is, but they want us to tell us what it really is. And most people can't do that. And that's our biggest obstacle, I think, and why we have that huge decline. Partly, but I don't want to beat ourselves. We're not the only reason. Masonry's not the one that took the hit. Churches have taken the hit. The Lions Club's taken the hit. Kiwanis Club's taken the hit. All of those fraternal orders have taken the hit. So it's a matter now of we can step up and be something unique, and because we are unique, and bring that to the table. We've got to start thinking in those terms of relevance to the community, relevance to this newer generation, so that they come to us to get polished like a finishing school for men, so that they learn how to behave and how to act with their family and with their community. That's
Hey,
my
John?
2 cents.
Hey, John.
You bet.
So kind of continue on thought, people will invest in something that they get a return from. So look at Masonry as a bank.
Exactly.
Is that something that you would invest in today, your lodge? So if you're not getting a good return on your investment, and it means time, energy, effort, membership, the whole business, why are you getting out a CD?
Exactly.
So
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's all my 2.
Now you have 3. Is Gordon Johnson still out there? Do you see him? Gordon Johnson?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Gordon, on your chat, just so that you know, I have been writing articles on civility for, well, I did it for the Grand Lodge newsletter, and they decided they didn't have room. So in the Washington Masonic newsletter, writing about civility, and I use the 3 principal jewels and their connection to civility. if you get in touch with Ken Gibson, you can see what I had to say about the jewels and civility.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, you got a flap.
All right, so I think I want to say thank you for these meetings. I really appreciate them. And what I'm thinking is, I think this civility is a very good educational for everybody. And I think a lot of people are actually coming away from it. That I noticed. But I think what would be an educational thing is to have these in the lodges, so just as a friendly reminder for all the Masons. You know, because and I agree with Glenn, you know, a lot of these people are deteriorating and coming away because of the drama. But I think with the civility, if they put it in the lodges, it'll give us something to look at and think about and try to get us back on the right track. Because I think some people are just are actually going away from the civility. And they might not realize it.
Yeah, I'll take this. I'll take this show on the road anywhere, anytime, as soon as they open the gate.
But yeah, because like I said, I think it's an excellent educational tool for, you know, for everybody in general, not just Masons, but everybody in general life. But I just wanted to.
That's a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, and that just, you know, and I just think that it would be a good reminder, you know, for all the Masons if in lodges they have something to look at, and just a reminder to them.
True. And those others that I guess we refer to them as them guys. For them guys, the Worldwide Civility Center is one of those things that's looking at all avenues, the word and tools.
Yeah,
Dave, unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to throw that out there.
So here I've been talking for 20 minutes, and no wonder nobody's responding to me because I had it on mute. So,
do you want to join the METTING?
Oh, shut up, Sam. So Foley, you had your hand up.
Very civil.
I was calling on you, and you weren't answering. I'm like, what the heck? Because I was on mute.
So either Lauren or Glenn brought up the question of how do we get the lodges to do something, something civil perhaps. And the last gentleman, I forget his name, just brought up, you know, are there any training programs? There is one significant training program that Washington Masonic Charities can put out through its Children and Youth program. It's called the Civil Dialogue.
Yep.
My lady and I and the coordinator for the program, Kurt Miller, we've traveled up and down the west side of the state putting these on for our youth groups. Trying to get a lodge or a district together to hold one of these demonstrations has been virtually impossible. We did one at Salt Monroe Lodge a little over a year ago, and that worked out good because we had people from my work there, school districts, the city governments. And for those of you who have never seen one of these put on or don't know about it, a civil dialogue is a lesson or a reminder for us older folks of civil discourse. We purposely inject a very heated topic to that group, let them stew over it, and we ask for 5 volunteers ranging from extremely disagree to extremely agree, with neutral being in the middle. We randomly pick 5 people out. We give them time to talk. And it's not a debate as it is a session of active listening. We actually listen to what somebody has to say, even though it just may make your blood boil. And then at the end of this, be able to get up, shake hands, and still be brothers. There's one thing right there, or one program right there, that we could bring to lodges or districts or at any time. I've never had a bad review from the adults or the kids on these things. And I think all of us from time to time just need a reminder of civil discourse. So there are programs out there. The lodges just need to respond.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say when I was speaking and muted myself is Dave, that I know there's lots of things like Sam's presentation, Larry's presentation, Andre, who had to leave, he's got presentations that they would all love to do in lodge, but we can't just show up at a lodge to do a presentation. We have to be invited.
Well, not necessarily. I've showed up and given presentations uninvited.
Yeah, you were Grand Master too.
Oh yeah.
So Lauren Kaiser, I apologize. I did see that your hand up was up earlier, and I kept calling on you, and I was muted. So sorry about that.
That's all right. I didn't realize you were calling on me. I guess it's because you were muted.
Yeah.
So I was going to say a couple things. One, is Michael Burton still here?
He actually had to drop off.
All right. Well, anyway, one of the things I was going to say was to him was that he was talking about the doing the ritual right, and I can't remember where I read it, but I'm guessing Sam might know. I read something recently about that where, like by doing the opening, it sort of is like it's creates a mindset where everybody that like comes into lodge kind of steps off the track and into a setting for the stated meeting where we're doing fellowship or business meetings or whatever, which I thought was, I don't think I've worded it very well, but I'm guessing you guys kind of hopefully know what I mean. And I thought that was interesting and worth pointing out when he was talking about the idea about not doing the ritual well. And I was pro tem master last year, and I'm master right now, and I've really felt a lot of responsibility to try to help the other guys in my line, and that what I do myself is a signal of, if it's not important to me, why would it be important to them to do it well? And which was something I think he was saying. The other thing I was going to say was that, is that John Lawson? Is that the guy that was doing the Zoom meeting a couple of nights ago that was a harmony deal?
Yep.
Well,
yep.
I just want to say well done on that, even though it ended a little bit prematurely. But I'm glad to see the face. And I also wanted to say to Lauren White that I bet you can relate to the fact that for me, it's been a rare thing in my life that I have met another gentleman named Lauren, and even rarer that they had spelled their first name the same way that my name is spelled. So even though we haven't met each other in person, are you even still on this thing? Did he leave?
No, he had to jump off.
Oh, well, in that case, I'm talking to nobody. All right. Well,
that's
and I also was going to say that I am considering doing a Zoom meeting for our lodge, and I had wanted to attend a couple of them to try and figure out what's good and bad about them and how to try and do a good job. And I really appreciate having the opportunity to participate in this one, and thank you to everyone, including especially to Most Worshipful Sam and to Steve Martin for putting it on. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for coming. We appreciate having as many as we can get.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to say goodnight.
All right. Good night.
Night.
Looks like Linton, you got something you want to pass on here? Let me unmute you. Oh, and there you go.
Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to wish everyone the very best from up here in Bellingham. I see there's about 3 or 4 of us from District 10 that joined down here in your meeting tonight. And the topic was very timely and good. And I appreciate the brotherhood and the company this evening. So thank you for this opportunity.
Excellent. I've told people at every one of these meetings that this has been something of a very therapeutic thing for me, because when we went into the shelter in place, I didn't realize what an extrovert I am. And every time I say that, there's 4 or 5 brothers like, yeah, we did. So
yeah, we did.
Lauren White is a member of my lodge, and I'll tell the other Lauren that he spoke kindly of him.
Yeah, I need to get with him. I want to sit down and talk with Lauren White. That's
Lauren White is actually down in Oregon. He's on an archaeological dig down there and doing his master's thesis.
okay.
Yeah, he's an archaeologist.
All right. So, anybody else? I don't see any other hands up right now. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody, and we will do our good evening toast to the absent brethren. Let me come here. All right. All right. So everybody is now unmuted. And brethren, remember, no matter where you are at this time of night or every night, I will do a toast to the absent brethren. So you've always got somebody with you. To our absent brethren.
Absent brethren.
Once he gets up and takes care of the kid, and he doesn't have to
And
take
with that, I'm going to stop the recording. The meeting will be over, but feel free to hang around and chat a little bit if you'd like to.
Good night, everyone.